commissioners to consider it. Have a responsible plan. Don't just sit there pontificating
You're
over some
foaming at the
talking
mouth.
points that others have read.
I mean, this is ridiculous. You're foaming at the mouth.
What's your motion?
Then I'll make a motion to reduce the tax increase to accommodate the $7 million which I've identified.
Okay. You need to come up with something that is, the value is $22.332 million. Tell me where that is. Offer the motion.
That would have to be discussed. I make a motion to reduce the tax increase to accommodate the $7 million I have identified. So I don't know what that millage rate would be.
You've had months to work on this budget, like the rest of us have been. So to show up here on the final hour and not even be able to identify the millage that you're proposing for these cuts, that would go with these cuts,
It's not my
is
job to
It's
identify a
not your
millage rate.
job?
To identify a millage rate? No. I just identified over $7 million of waste.
All right.
So, to be clear, if that's your motion, is it, because the motion has to be an expense authority, or is it your motion to increase the expense authority from year to year by approximately $16 million and to raise taxes to whatever millage rate we'd have to have Dean prepare to accommodate a tax increase of $16 million? Is that your motion?
I think we should figure out what that lower millage rate would be. And that would be my motion, correct?
All right, so there's a motion on the table that has yet to be seconded. Is there a second on that motion, such as it is?
I don't know what the motion is.
I don't either,
Give me a
but,
second, so.
All right, you have no more detail to offer.
There's more, but there's at least over $7 million that we can reduce this by.
I meant in terms of the
Okay,
millage.
instead of increasing spending from $389 million to $409 million. So before we go back to the taxpayers, we should consider the cuts that I presented today, figure out what that millage rate is, and that would be my motion, to move forward at a lower spending level than what is proposed.
Okay, so is there a second on that proposed motion?
I'm prepared to second a balanced motion, one that eliminates $23 million and finds $23 million in cuts or $23 million of other tax increases. That's what a proper motion is. I'd be pleased to second that if a proper motion were put in place. I offered some alternatives, if the gentleman would like to take a few moments and scratch out a new motion.
I don't agree with all those alternatives, so. If you don't want to call it an amendment, call it my comment. I don't care what you want to call it. That's my comment. And every day I receive a stack of emails from members of the public that agree that back-to-back tax increases is unacceptable and that we have a huge spending problem here in Montgomery County. So I don't think they care whether it's called an amendment or a comment, whatever you want to call it. I think it's entirely too much spending. Remove the motion from the floor since it's not even being accepted, and go ahead and increase taxes again by double-digit tax increase 2 years in a row when I'm offering over $7 million of cuts right off the bat, and there's more that can be cut. That's something that should have been done over the course of the year.
Madam Chair, is the gentleman offering $7 million in cuts and a $16 million tax increase, or $7 million in cuts and $16 million in additional cuts that you just haven't taken the time to identify?
I think it'd have to be a combination
So you are
of
in
additional
favor,
cuts.
you are in favor of raising taxes $16 million?
I am in favor. No, I think there should be a combination. There should be additional cuts.
I got that.
And before we go back to the residents of Montgomery County, with the millage proposed in this budget, that can come down.
Okay, so you've identified $7 million in cuts, which again is really $6 million because it's operating. And so you're saying you're for a $16 or $17 million tax increase along with an offsetting cut of $6 million. That's what you're for.
I think it could be less than that.
But you're for a tax increase.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. Okay, so you're for 16 or 17 million in additional cuts, but you just don't know what they are.
I think if we could get it down lower, I would be willing to adjusted to that correct millage rate,
You would be willing to increase taxes.
if necessary.
Okay, so you're for raising taxes, you just wanna see additional cuts, but you don't know what those cuts are.
I think that should be discussed, like I said earlier, weeks ago, with department heads and with the three of us
I-
and the CFO.
Excuse me, I need to step on. I did discuss this with department heads, I did my homework, I'm prepared to advance cuts, I'm prepared to advance this tax increase. So I'm confused, because the speech you gave was all about how we shouldn't raise taxes. You just admitted that you think we should raise taxes.